animated through all this.
She's resourceful, Seeker.
We will see for ourselves at the forward camp. We're almost there.
Hey, Andrea.
Hey, Brandon.
What's up? It's always awesome to have you through the power of the internet to be able to chat with us about all sorts of fun games. And you have a super awesome fun game to talk about, and a game that we haven't talked a lot about, Dragon Age Inquisition.
Yes.
Love the first two Dragon Age games and haven't had a lot of time, really any time with the game, even skipping around at all the events that I've been to. But lucky you got to play a bunch of this game. What did you check out?
Well, I got some really extensive hands-on time with the single-player campaign of Dragon Age Inquisition, as you mentioned. So I got to start from the very beginning, got to see the prologue and do character creation. And I picked a female Kunari because you may or may not know, in Inquisition, the Kunari are playable for the first time ever. So I thought I better test them out and see how they were. I have to say I didn't really like playing as a Kunari. I'm probably going to go play as a human when the game actually comes out. But I wanted to, you said that you liked the first two games a lot. I mean, like that's, I don't want to say that that's an unpopular opinion, but I feel like the fans of Dragon Age are really divided over Dragon Age.
I am divided about the first two. If I could have a game that had the story of the first game and the gameplay of the second game, to me that would be a perfect action RPG. I really liked the characters and the setup, going up and facing up against this dragon at the end of the first game, but I felt that the gameplay was kind of stilted, and just the hammers, and there was just so much power in the second game. I loved the combat, but I really couldn't care at all. And they really built up you facing off against this villain in all of the trailers, and it turned out that was kind of like Act 2 of Dragon Age 2, and then Act 3 of Dragon Age 2 was this completely new random thing, and so I wasn't necessarily attached to the characters, and they kept kind of redefining who you were as the main character in Dragon Age 2, so that to me got kind of muddy. But it's interesting that it's not Dragon Age 3, it's Inquisition. So do we get a sense that they really want to continue this franchise, and unlike something like a Mass Effect, they don't want it tied to a trilogy? Do you get that vibe?
Absolutely. I had the chance to sit down with the executive producer of the game, Mark Dara, and I asked him that question point blank and said, is this the end of Dragon Age? Is Inquisition, the final chapter? And he said, absolutely not. There's a very specific reason why we don't pick one central protagonist to tell our stories around, like Commander Shepard in Mass Effect. In Dragon Age, you have the kind of this cast of characters. He said they really love focusing on the overall lore of the Dragon Age world. And I thought that was a really interesting thing for him to say. And I think fans are probably going to be really excited to hear that, yes, more Dragon Age is coming after Inquisition. They've really taken it to the next level with what they've done with Frostbite, the new engine that they're working on, and just how big the open world is. My very first impressions after an hour of playing was it felt like it has the potential to have that expansiveness and that depth of gameplay that we saw in Skyrim. And we haven't really seen another open world RPG that's come close to that yet, because that world was enormous.
It's a name people throw around a lot. They'll say, like even other franchises like Borderlands, like Skyrim with guns, but we haven't really seen something yet to that scale. But it felt like that, venturing out into the open world.
Yeah, it absolutely did. I mean, right off the bat, you can choose to go off on your own and just explore. Exploration was something that BioWare really wanted to bring back to their games, and so they're really showcasing that now with Dragon Age. And of course, they spoke about that for the upcoming Mass Effect game at Comic-Con as well. But for this game, you really can just go off and wander around and collect herbs or collect minerals or pick up side quests or close these rifts, because the whole central narrative of the story is based off this giant, rift that has opened up inside Thetis, and it's your job because you have this special marking to go and help, the citizens of the world, essentially save them from these demons that are invading and eventually close that rift. And then how you get there is by building up the Inquisition. So at the beginning of the game, the Chantry completely denounces the Inquisition and says that they don't support them and nobody else should support them, and it's up to you and kind of your council members of the Inquisition to build up the Inquisition's reputation and power and strength through all of these different quests that you do to get the resources you need to, kind of go to the end game, the end battle of it. And it's so far, like off the bat, it's super compelling. And I'm not very deep into the Dragon Age lore. Like, I am a hardcore Mass Effect fan, but I never really gravitated toward what was happening in Dragon Age. And it really sucked me in right away. And what's really cool about it is if you've played previous Dragon Age games, you can bring over the decisions that you've made, the people that you've romanced, or the characters that you've made, moral choices with, and you can bring those decisions into your Inquisition game no matter what platform you started on.
Well, I wonder if that was kind of the response to the commentary of people not feeling that the story really translated as from Dragon Age 1 into Dragon Age 2 the way they, in a profound way that they expected, where that's something that definitely happened from Mass Effect 1 going into 2 and of course 3. So maybe this is kind of them starting over with the series, kind of like building, and it's a new generation, so it's exciting to, to start fresh and not necessarily continue things that you've done. But I'm really curious if they're introducing so many characters, how those decisions play in. I remember in Dragon Age 2, a couple people popped up and like that character was a king or was not a king based on decisions I had made in prior games, but like didn't really feel a huge impact going in. So I'm curious how those decisions translate over. So you didn't like the Kunari. I want to get back to that. What was about it? Why are you going back to human? What didn't you like?
I don't know. I think it ultimately comes down to what you want your perks to be for your character. And, the human gets an extra ability point at the beginning, which I think is so crucial, especially in the beginning stages. And the Kunari just got like a 10% buff to like physical damage or something like that. I have to go back and check my notes for what it actually is. But I think I just don't like the physicality of her. She's just enormous. She's just gigantic, like in a way that you would think is really good if you were playing as a warrior, but I am playing as a mage. So I kind of like the more like smaller, swift characters who use light armor and, fast-paced weapons versus like, the more tanky characters. So it's really like, let me just be honest and say that my opinion of the Kunari is completely just subjective to me, and nobody should, go in with feelings against the Kunari just because I didn't like them.
Like you described them really well, and it sounds like the option is there if you do want to create your own character. Like from the experience you've had, you felt that when you go in for your own personal experience, you'll be able to craft a character that suits your liking. You'll be able to customize your class to have fun the way you want to have fun. Co-op looks super fun. I saw that at PAX. Were you able to try that at all? Any multiplayer?
No. So at this event, they didn't let us play any multiplayer. It was single player focused. They really wanted us to get a sense of the scale of the world and see a couple different areas, which we did, which was really cool because there's, some of the areas look really unique. They have very iconic, geography. Was this like very like rolling plains area that we went to in the hinterlands, and then this very like rocky coastline in the Storm Coast, and a couple different areas. And when I was talking to the development team, they said that there's 50 different areas in the game that kind of make up this open world of Thedas, and I thought that was really impressive. They all looked beautiful. The graphics look fantastic. We were playing on PS4, but they did also have PC builds there as well. But I'm more of a controller fan myself, so I play on console. But it looked fantastic. So very excited about that.
Speaking of control, are there any different ways anything that you recognize from prior Dragon Age games that's kind of changed the way the buttons are laid out, or anything in the menus or any of the systems, maybe like equipping things or using items that seem different or that they talked about?
Well, nothing that was really dramatically different, just that I noticed, but I also haven't spent extensive time with the Dragon Age franchise. I did really like the way that they have added kind of another level to the RPG system. At first, I thought that it was maybe too much to manage because, different Dragon Age games have had different levels of control over the abilities of your party members. So you always have, full control over your character. In Dragon Age Inquisition, you have your 3 party members in addition to your character, and you actually get to define each of their individual attributes throughout their skill tree. So you really have a lot of precise control over how each person in your party plays. So you can spec out each character's skill tree exactly the way you want it to be. Like if you want, Solas to be only like an ice mage, you can spec out, that tree in the magical abilities. Or if you want, Cassandra the warrior to be purely two-handed, she starts out as sword and shield, but you can spec her or respec her so that she plays only two-handed. I thought that was really a nice thing that they did for people who really love that kind of RPG aspect of this action adventure, because I made that reference to Skyrim, and like you said, a lot of people make that reference to Skyrim. What I think Dragon Age really does well and does better than Skyrim is combat. And so they have a balance between maybe pulling back a little bit on this really extensive skill tree system and adding in a lot more combat elements that make it feel a lot meatier, and it's a lot more fun to have combat encounters than I ever had in a game like Skyrim.
Well, it's funny you mentioned like closing demon rift gates. That sounds like Oblivion.
Yeah.
That's what we did in Oblivion. Were there any? Just finally, were there any of those characters that stood out? I mean, anybody that had a fun personality? Did you get a chance to interact with your compatriots in the Inquisition?
Yeah, so we actually got to meet this whole council of team members of these people that are trying to help you build the Inquisition. So these people aren't your party members. These are people that you have more of a high-level interaction with, and you interact with them and send them on their own individual missions to get Inquisition perks. And these Inquisition perks are kind of like high-level passive perks that affect your whole party or can affect you. They're not the same as like your individual skill tree abilities. And they have 4 different sections: Forces, Secrets, Connections, and Inquisition. And it's really interesting to see how they interact, and those decisions that you make at your war table are what affects the kind of high-level metagame, which will mean like different things in the world will happen depending on what decisions you make at that war table. And I thought that was a really nice added level to the gameplay and to the narrative of the overall story. I mean, there's so much. I know it's hard because we've been going on, but there's so much to talk about because I feel like this is such a wide and really deep gameplay experience. And not that, we haven't seen previous Dragon Ages, bring that to the table, but they're just bringing so much more. I mean, Dragon Age 2 and Origins combined are not as big as Inquisition is. I mean, that's huge. That's a lot of games.
It's a tough game. It's a tough game to show off in a short amount of time. To have a bunch of journalists come in and just kind of like let them run free and then try to see what they can find. So yeah, it sounds like there's a lot more that we have yet to see from the game. But thank you so much for the update.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
hopefully we get more info on the game soon.
Yes.
Good to see you.
It's coming. Bye.